God made with Abraham is formed after the types of covenants that would have been used in those times. Those kinds of things ought not to, they don't discourage us, or they don't cause any doubt on the authority of Scripture. What is God doing with those things? He's using the elements that we understand. He's using the world things that we understand. Sometimes from creation, like when Jesus used illustrations about grains of wheat or mustard seeds or those things. God uses things that we can relate to express truth about himself. And there's a very important word that we read very frequently in Scripture that we get the idea from here. That's the word redemption. I want to read to you from 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 18 and 19. This is obviously not Paul, but it's a very clear expression of this word redemption. For you know that it was not with perishable things such as silver or gold that you were redeemed from the empty way of life handed down to you by your forefathers, but with the precious blood of Christ, a lamb without blemish or defect. The word there is redemption. We find that word used throughout the New Testament. The Apostle Paul uses it, Peter uses it, John uses it. Just about all of the New Testament apostles use it. Now, when you think of redemption, how many of you go back far enough to remember S&H green stamps? Yes. All right, I remember. Now, I am really dating myself. I remember Mom getting those booklets and licking those stamps and going down and getting a toaster or some dishes. Or in fact, my mom tells me that her first set of dishes were with S&H green stamps. Well, there were redemption centers, right? You fill your books, you take the books to the redemption center, and you would get your items. Well, the idea of redemption comes from this idea of the marketplace or the Agora. There are three most frequently used words in the New Testament for redemption. One is agorazo. It's a verb that comes out of the noun. Okay, the noun, the agora. And agorazo means to buy in the market. Okay, and let me just give you a few verses that use that word agorazo. It's in Luke 14, verse 18. They all began to make excuses. The first said, I have bought a field and I must go and sell it. I have bought something. So agorazo means to buy or to purchase. But Paul uses this, and the New Testament epistles use this, to talk about how Christ has purchased us for himself. 1 Corinthians 6, verse 20, you were bought with a price, therefore honor God with your body. We were purchased. We were bought out of the marketplace of life. It's used in Revelation, and they sang a new song, you are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, because you were slain, and with your blood you purchased for God men from every language and tribe and people and nation. There's another word, it's a kind of a form of that word, it's ekagorazo, and it means to buy out of the marketplace. It's very similar, and that word is used, for example, in Galatians 3:13. Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. It's used in Galatians chapter 4, verse 5, where Jesus redeemed those who were under the law that they might receive the rights as sons. There's a third word, and again, it's a word that the Roman mind, the first century mind would have understood. It's the word lutroo. A lutron was a payment price to release someone or to buy someone's freedom from slavery. Everyone knew what a lutron was. If you were a slave and you would try to save money, perhaps others would contribute that money for you. At the end of a long, long period of time, a lifetime of saving, you might be able to pay the lutron, or someone would pay the lutron for you to release you from slavery. And so we find another word for redemption, lutroo, which means a payment price that was given to release us from our slavery. That's exactly what Jesus has done for us. He's made a payment to release us from slavery. As we think about that, I want to think about the payment for redemption. The payment for our redemption is the blood of Christ. The purpose of our redemption is so that we might be for the praise and glory of him. It's mentioned in Ephesians chapter 4. So that we might be for his praise and glory. Ephesians 1, Ephesians 3, Ephesians 4 talk about us being for the glory of God. That's why God has redeemed us. It's more than just a selfless act for us that blesses us. Yes, it does bless us. God has blessed us. But there's so much more than just the benefit that God gives us. There's a purpose that he's given to us in life. And then finally, the purpose of that redemption is for us to be for God's glory. And I missed one here, and it's the payment for that redemption. What is the payment? The payment is the blood of Christ. The redemption given to us, the redemption that was paid for to buy us out of the marketplace of life. So these words, we have to go back and we understand what the word redemption means, but we've got to go back to the original Greek and the Old Testament, the original Hebrew words, and find out what they meant. Understand that they meant something very, very clear to the first century author. So when you hear your pastor talk about a Greek word, don't go, oh, I'm going to zone out. That's how God communicated the word to us. These terms and ideas were completely known. They didn't need explanation. You didn't have to explain what that meant. For us, we have to explain them and think about that, how Christ has redeemed us. He's taken us from the things that are common. He's taken us from the commonplace, and he's brought us to himself, and he's done that by paying for our redemption with his own blood. Kind of neat to think about in the Agora, isn't it? Very good. That's the short version because we want to march on.